So who the hell is Perry Anderson? I get asked often, and I always shortcut the explanation, but let me tell you a little bit about me, right? Because people like doing business with people they know and trust. So I hope you can get to know me a little bit more and trust me, like the tens of thousands of customers that we have now. Right. I'm very visible on our website or in our business at bestlineracing.com if you want to see us there. You can also see me on LinkedIn if you look for Perry Anderson, and YouTube channel at perryanderson.com. So, but a little bit about me and why I do what I do. I've always been a risk taker, but ever since I was a little kid, I built the little very old school radios when I was like 6, right? I got real interested in mechanical things by the age of about 10 or 12, working on, I had a go-kart, right? A little gas-powered go-kart back then that we'd run around the streets and get in trouble. Mini bikes that didn't have any suspension back then. They were just rigid and beat the hell out of us. But, you deal with, sand and dirt and the fuel, things like that. The carburetors wouldn't work back when carburetors were more popular than they are now. But so anyway, I took everything apart, figured it out, put it back together. And that's what I always did. I had my first car when I was 15, I think, when I bought it. It was a 1965 MG Midget. It was a very oxidized blue paint, right, that I buffed out and made it look like new. It was really kind of incredible. But it had a couple of Weber carburetors on it that you had to balance, and it didn't run well, so I had to figure all that out. But I loved that kind of stuff. If something's not working, I like to try to find a reason why. So as we fast forward into my adulthood, sorry, my eye's itching. I found that I liked inventing things on a bigger scale. So I became a sales rep. And honestly, it was in the hot tub and spa world and swimming pools. So there was a lot of innovation that needed to happen back then. This is 35 years ago or something, long time ago. And so I worked with plastics companies and electronic companies to develop new things. And you can see some of my patented products that I created in a number of industries. If you go to my LinkedIn profile there, you can see the details there. But because of my curiosity about why things don't work and how to fix them. So another example, I bought a 52-foot yacht, 12, 15 years ago. I had it in San Diego, and I noticed that, I would see fuel spills, floating by in the marina at our docks, and you're not supposed to spill fuel. You can actually get fined a lot of money for that, but it was hard to refuel a boat because the vent that comes off of the fuel tanks is outboard, and one of the indicators that your fuel tank's getting full is that it would spit fuel. So if you didn't have a way to capture that fuel during the refueling event, it would spill in the water. And, our harbors and marinas are where a lot of the life begins. So you don't want to pollute that. And that got my concern. So I looked into that, found that there really wasn't any good solution. So I started a new company called Clean Marine Systems. And I developed a number of products to help prevent fuel spills. And we did that. I worked on the bigger boats as well as companies like, with Mastercraft and Nautique and Alumaweld and a bunch of boat companies back then when the EPA mandated that they find a way to stop spilling fuel on the smaller gasoline boats. So we did that. We produced products for that and sold it to a lot of the big companies. And that was part of the process in where I ended up today with Bestline Racing. And by the way, I'm in Bend. You can see the other camera. That's on the river that cuts right through Bend, Oregon. It's 32 degrees out, but it's sunny, and it's just a beautiful place to be. So I'm kind of showing that off while I'm talking to you. But back to the additive business. I don't know, 12 years ago when I was in Clean Marine Systems, we had a real nice display at the boat shows, right? The international, Miami International Boat Show and the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. And a gentleman came up to me and asked me if I can build a controller that would automatically add fuel additives after the refueling event on a over-the-road truck. Right, over-the-road trucks have 80-gallon tanks. A lot of them, most of them, are on both sides, 80 to 100 gallons on one or both sides. And he had because he was in the fuel additive business, and he said one of his biggest problems is that to get a consistent read, a consistent benefit from his product, the driver would need to add the right amount of additive after each refueling event. Well, truck drivers, as you might know, are in a hurry. They're probably not going to take a lot of time to measure the right amount, or most of the time probably just not add it at all. So he wasn't getting the results that he wanted. But what I was showing at the show there were products that monitored fuel levels and water levels. In fact, for several years, we made the ballast level sensors for the new wakeboard boats, like for Mastercraft and Nautique. That was one of our products. But so we were talking, and he was looking at those. It's like, yeah, I nearly make that now. So we did. Unfortunately, his market wasn't as good as he thought, so it didn't go to market. But it got me involved in the additive business because I started looking. I was curious as to why these additives are all different prices, but they all have really similar claims on what they're going to do for you. I discovered that was a problem. I worked with a number of chemists, found some real good ones that told me the truth, and there's a lot of crap out there that simply just don't work. So I thought, well, we'll just make something that actually works, and it'll sell like crazy. Well, as a lot of you know, you can build a better mousetrap and expect people to come running to it, but that's not the way it works. It takes a lot of marketing money, especially now. We're competing with a lot of the big guys. But in any case, that was my entrance into this business more than 10 years ago. I wanted to create something that actually worked, bring it to market, because that's what I do. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, ever since I could push a lawnmower when I was, 6 or 7 years old, and mow my neighbor's lawns. Right. So, I discovered that there was a lot of stuff out there that actually didn't work. And you can see for yourself. You can go to the shelf and you'll find stuff for, $4 or $5 up to $30 for fuel additives. Some of them are just plain kerosene in a jar or in a bottle, right? And they make all kinds of claims. It gets even worse with engine oil treatments. Again, you can buy something for $6 or up to $100 and more now, with stuff that are, incredible claims that are being made. And through our diligent, real lab tests, most of those don't do what they say they're doing. So we're challenging freaking everybody, right? Because it's nonsense. We don't need to lie to the consumer about what it does, but it's working. You guys on TikTok and other places, you're falling for the crap. So I don't know. I'm trying to bring you a real product that actually works the way we say it does. We spend millions of dollars in time and money on these formulas because we just don't throw stuff in a jar and say, hey, here's what it works. We actually have to have a scientist that correctly formulates it for the oil applications that we're in. And it's important to me to make sure you get what you pay for, and that our claims on the bottle and everywhere else are actual factual benefits to you. We're going to provide what we promise. And our other promise is it's a money-back guarantee. If you don't see an improvement in your car, truck, motorcycle, heavy equipment, whatever it is, you get your money back and keep the product. You don't need to ship it back. It's not a hassle. Just call me and say, hey, Perry, I didn't really see any difference. I'm going to ask you a few questions because I'll be surprised. But honestly, in my career in this business, I think that's only happened twice. So anyway, I know our product works. We're not making it in a garage or warehouse somewhere. It's actually created in an actual blending facility that creates, that we have all of the different components and we blend it to a particular formula that is in every bottle, not just the test bottles that we might send to a test lab someplace or play on the machine, the lubricity machine that can be cheated so easily, so many different ways. You'll see our lubricity tests that I do. I'll show you how that should be produced, how you should use it. And if you don't do it that way, you're contaminating the surfaces with the other products. You can show it. You can show anything work better than the other guys by simple tricks that you can do on that machine, because it's not a machine that we pay for at a test lab. There are ASTM tests that we do. Some of them are called 4-ball wear tests. The others are ring on sleeve. So it's actually your piston rings in a sleeve, in the cylinder sleeve. That run those kinds of tests, and they run for many hours, sometimes days, to get the results. And we use those as a way to better create our products, to make sure they perform for you. Anyway, it's a Saturday, I think January 17th, and I just wanted to let you guys know who I am, right? The other thing is, I like experimenting with things. I used to windsurf and kiteboard. I bought a one wheel lately, just to run around town. It's that electric, looks like a large skateboard with a big fat tire in the middle. People are kind of surprised that somebody my age is running around town having fun with that. But I do. That's something I do. And my friends tell other friends when we're together, if they ever see me, laying down on a couch in the afternoon, you better call 911, because sorry, that's just not what I do. I'm always looking for opportunities to solve problems, to fix problems. And anyway, I hope this makes sense to you. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll talk again. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to share the information about your car, truck, motorcycle, whatever, share that as well. I'll respond, usually within a day. I like keeping in touch with you guys. So anyway, God bless you. I hope you have a great day. I thought you might want to know a little bit more about my mechanical abilities too. So anyway, a few years ago, I bought a 52-foot boat that I parked in San Diego. I told you a little bit about that. That's how I discovered that fuel was spilling out of boats, and I wanted to fix that. So to manage that little bit better, that boat had two Caterpillar 3208s that I needed to make sure maintaining your boat that goes offshore, 100 miles out at sea. It's important to know that it's going to make it out there and back. Right. It is literally a life or death situation. So I was a fanatic on those motors. My engine compartment, I could stand up in it. It was a nice boat that way. Not all 52s had that kind of headroom in the engine compartment, and I'll show you those pictures. So anyway, I learned a lot about boats that way because I had to. Right, I like going outside in the deep ocean and see the whales and dolphins and go fishing and things like that out of San Diego. And when I started Clean Marine Systems, I was actually invited by the chief engineer onto Jack Nicklaus's boat called the Sea Bear, and you can see it online. She was about 140-foot long motor yacht. He had like 6 fishing boats parked on top because he liked taking his friends out at the south coast of Florida and run around to the islands and go tarpon fishing and that kind of thing. Anyway, the chief engineer asked me to come out, and the captain, because they were having a problem with their heating system. The engines would overheat at strange times. Right. So I invented an ultrasonic flow meter system that we can attach to the raw water intakes or anywhere on the raw water, the cooling systems for those engines, because you have a heat exchanger system there. So you'd be pulling up salt water from underneath the boat. It would go through a heat exchanger. The heat exchanger, it's like your radiator, except instead of air going through it, it's salt water going through it to cool it off. Because you would have your engine coolant running through there. They're not mixing. You're not mixing salt water or getting salt water in your engines. It's just a heat exchanger system. But anyhow, they were having a number of overheats situations. So they called me out, and you'll see the images I'll share with you here. But I strapped my system, my ultrasonic flow meters, to the intakes of both of those massive motors. And then we went for a run up into the inland channel there, inland waterway in Florida. And we discovered that at about 1,100 RPMs, air would end up in those intakes. And fortunately, I mean, my ultrasonic flow meters saw it, but I really wanted to have more evidence. But the sea strainers were clear. So fortunately, I can see that air was coming up into those sea strainers, both of them at the same time. And my ultrasonic flow meter system was telling me that too. I could see that. So I had them slow back down under 1,100 RPM. I think I had them go down to 1,000, and the air went away. And then so I had them bring it back up to 1,100. I'm talking to them through the radios. Took it back up to 1,100, the air would show up again in the sea strainers, which would cause overheating on those motors, because now you're pumping air instead of water, right? And so then I had them take it up to like 12 or 1,300 RPM. The air went away. So after some conversations and talking about the design of the boat, what we found is that on that super yacht, the stabilizer, they look like giant rudders, right, coming out of the side of the boat that automatically manage the pitch of the boat, so the boat's not rocking back and forth. Turns out those were ahead of the intakes, and we were guessing logically that those stabilizer fins somehow were pulling air from the surface down under the boat, and they would end up into the sea strainers only at that certain speed. It turns out that he liked to cruise at that 1,100 RPM, through the inland waterway. It was a nice, slow, I don't know what it was, 10 knots, 8 knots, something like that. So, and we tried that several times, and that was the case. You just couldn't do that 1,100 RPM anymore. So he marked, I believe, his RPM gauges up there saying, don't stay here. So, it'd be below that or above that now from then on, because you can't redesign the bottom of that boat very easily. It'd be way easier just to not be at that RPM range. Anyway, that was a fun thing. And I, around those giant MTU motors, working with the chief engineers, talking about what goes wrong and what goes right with those things. The lubricants they use are super important, obviously. And again, we're talking about giant costs if something fails. And that's why I got into this business, with Bestline Racing lubricants. It's a huge bill, even on your car, right? So start controlling the costs on your vehicle and use Bestline Racing engine treatment on every oil change. See you at bestlineracing.com.